Steve Wyche made some comments earlier on Steiny and Guru that we've been batting around. But it is interesting, and I know that we always overreact to every week in the NFL. Mondays and Tuesdays are the same every single fall. I get that. This year is no different. That said, doesn't it feel like Brock Purdy is firing up everybody's board really quickly this year? Really quickly. Even, by the way, after a game that we've all admitted was not his best.
Sure, not on the resume reel.
It was good. It was fine. It was all of those things. It was not his number one game, but man, he's flying up the board. Partially because of what he's doing, partially because have you looked around the league?
Yikes.
I mean, even if you're in a fantasy league, who's like pumped about their quarterback right now? Who's loving it?
You got Tua.
Sure.
You got Tua, you're loving it.
His second game was nothing to write home about. Raheem Mostert did all the work.
Right.
You know? I mean, I drafted Joe Burrow in the 4th round of our league. Thank God for Jared Goff in the 13th or whatever the hell I did to get him.
Yeah.
But, who's crushing it right now at the quarterback position around the NFL? How many are there? I mean, Mahomes' team is averaging under 20 points a game.
Right.
Who's been
Kirk Cousins has been great.
Cousins has been statistically fantastic.
He's second in yardage, and he is first in touchdowns.
Jordan Love has been really good, though, has thrown for less than 400 yards in 2 games. But he has a lot of touchdowns. He's got 6 touchdowns and no picks.
He leads the NFL in quarterback rating, which is hilarious to me. He's thrown 52 passes in 2 games.
Well, but, I mean, this is actually a wonderful example of a point you've made repeatedly. You hate quarterback rating.
Yes.
Want to know who the 4th rated quarterback is in the league right now?
I'm looking right at him.
Yeah. It's Russell Wilson. His team stinks. He's been horrid as a Bronco.
Right.
I mean, nothing less than horrid as a Bronco. Lost to the Raiders at home week 1 with 16 points on the board, yet somehow this is the 4th rated quarterback in the league. I'm not quite sure how we got there.
He's been sacked 9 times. So I guess being sacked is better than throwing a pick in terms of quarterback rating.
Quarterback rating's hysterical.
Yeah.
All outside the top 10 in quarterback rating so far through weeks 1 and 2. The names like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford. These players
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar
he's
is
11th, I think.
I think he's 10. I think Dak's 11.
Well, it depends if you count Gardner Minshew.
Oh, and I don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the shoe is...
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he hasn't started a game yet.
Right. And I guess I wonder what qualifies in the NFL in terms of, is it attempts? Is it...
I don't know.
Games played?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 2 games. But it's also 2 games. And you can start to see largely, and again, I don't go by QB rating either, but you can see what does work, what does not work. Here are the comments from Steve Wyche, NFL Network, with Steiny and Guru earlier today with regard to Brock Purdy and whether or not he's a product of his surroundings.
What about everything he's done makes you think he's not legit? I mean, he got injured, but everything about it, he can deliver the ball. He runs the offense well. I mean, I think he's a real guy. I mean, I don't think he's just a system guy. I think if he went to another team and played a different scheme, he'd be fine. I still think the national feeling is that the Niners are so stacked that they just need a game manager at quarterback. But I think Brock's the type of guy that if you needed him to win a game, if he had to throw it 40 times in a game, he can win it. Now, does he have great talent around him? 1,000%. But I think he's legit. I mean, there's nothing about me that I've seen that makes him think he's going to lose his cool, that he's going to go on some type of 4 interception game type spree. He just seems like a very legitimate NFL quarterback.
As you've said, I know you like QBR better. That's the adjusted quarterback rating. Brock Purdy is number 1 in the league.
Yeah, QBR.
Number 1.
He and Dak Prescott, right?
Yeah, I've seen that they're tied. ESPN right now is actually listing Brock Purdy as 3 points ahead of Dak. Okay. But whatever. He's either first or tied for first.
Yeah, it's funny that ESPN's stat would be different on another website.
I don't know.
a lot of these things are, especially when it comes to these ratings, when you have to do the math, and it depends on who does the math and where you do the math. Sometimes you get different results, and I get that. But Brock Purdy's been spectacular. You can't be better than 2-0, and he hasn't thrown a pick. So I don't know what more you would want from Brock Purdy. We already threw out sample size as a critical argument in this conversation. And honestly, Mark, sample size doesn't matter for any of these guys. If your team is 2-0, then as a quarterback, you've probably done pretty well. I don't know if there's a team that's 2-0 where you look at the quarterback and think, oh, you stink, and you're going to get taken out. You're going to get pulled. Is Derek Carr getting pulled because his team's 2-0? No, he hasn't been great. He's made mistakes, but they're 2-0.
Right.
And ultimately, you got to win football games.
I mean, they've scored 36 total points.
Right.
2-0. They got a good defense, and they've played two awful offenses.
Sure.
But, you play who's on your schedule, and you win the games,
right.
And I don't think the Saints are wanting to give him back. Not yet. We'll see if they feel differently in a couple of months.
Right.
But no, there's no buyer's remorse on him right now. I think the buyer's remorse teams are Cleveland and Denver. Those are your buyer's remorse teams right now with regard to massive free agent dollars and what you're getting in terms of production and in the standings.
Yeah, and it's, the Russell Wilson one you kind of laugh at because you could see it coming, and the Deshaun Watson one, I think that if you asked all 31 other generals manager about him, they probably would have thought, you know what, if it wasn't for the unbelievable stain of his off-field trouble, yeah, we'd love to have him. And I think the Niners were a team that kicked the tires. Many teams kicked their tires.
Well, they certainly kicked the tires prior to the legal stuff all coming out.
Right.
I don't think they did afterward.
Well, I don't think because of, what the Niners have done, and the Niners have had a bad track record of off-field controversy, whether it was, Aldon Smith and what he went through, and Bruce Miller punching a 72-year-old man down here in Fisherman's Wharf.
That's interesting that you
Ray McDonald had his off-field incident.
Sure.
I do think that this franchise, and a lot of it was before Lynch and Shanahan, I think that this franchise and this organization has had enough of off-field controversy, and I didn't even mention Reuben Foster.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I was sort of like, that's interesting that you'd say they have a bad track record. I would argue that this regime's track record is we're not tolerating any junk.
This regime.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this franchise,
I think all
which goes before the regime.
Okay, yeah. Like all the franchises have. Unfortunately, this is football.
Right, but some franchises are much more amenable to bad character guys.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Tyreek Hill, come to Miami.
No, that's right.
Come to Kansas City.
I think the Niners have a good track record now of how they handle these situations. Yes.
And I think they have a good track record now, which has led them to not be in on guys like Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, agreed.
And, whether or not you think Deshaun Watson did anything wrong or, the legal system he was never accused, he was never convicted of blah, blah, blah. Fine. There are 28 women who accused him of basically the same sort of an act, and that is unsavory at the very least. And so I do think that the Niners have been pretty clear about steering away from these individuals, and that's why, they probably weren't in on him. But to Deshaun Watson, how many teams were actually interested in doing maybe not what Cleveland did, but bringing him in?
I don't know about the contract, but as far as
the contract was crazy,
the contract was nuts. But who was interested? Multiple,
sure,
multiple, absolutely. JJ in San Jose here with Willard and Dibs. Hi, JJ. What are you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm sitting in my car. I'm somewhere home from work, listening to the two boys on the radio.
Yeah.
You guys are killing it, and it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people who can't just face the fact that Purdy is probably the best quarterback that Shanahan's had in his tenure, and he's a 7th-round pick. But even more so, I think a lot of fans, they have this, I don't even want to call it irrational confidence. I'm calling it rational confidence because it's the first time where everybody's 100% bought in and the team is actually that good to the point to where, we're number one in this, number one in that. You got all pros all over the field. they're at a point now where it's like excellent. It's 100%. It's like they're 90% excellent. All they got to do is get that chip, and once they get there, it's like almost guaranteed.
Whoop! Did we lose him? I think we got most of what JJ was saying.
Yeah, we did.
And then we lost him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost him.
Okay.
Once the Niners get that chip, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. I don't know what anybody would say after that, but that's kind of what everyone's rallying cry is now. It's like,
Sure.
okay, everything's in place. Now you have to go win it. And my argument would be, well, but no, not really. It depends on how you. I'm not saying I don't want that. I'm not saying
Right.
that that's not going to be a standard of measurement. Of course it will be. I just don't think that there is the. I don't think there's the clock on this that some fans would like to be on it.
No, and fans want the chip.
Go win it, or else I don't want to hear from you. Well, no, you're going to hear from him.
You are.
Whether they win this year or not, you're going to hear.
And he's signed
from
for
Kyle Shanahan.
3 more years.
He's going to be signed
which
for
means,
a lot more years.
Well, right now it's 3
more.
years. And the 3 years really means 2 years because you don't let him go into the lame duck year and coach. So Kyle's got 2 years. And the only thing, and you and I have talked about this, it would have to go bad, really bad, terribly bad,
Right.
lose the locker room bad. Your quarterback is not the answer bad.
I mean, do you see any of these things as even possible right now?
Anything's possible, Mark.
Well-
and Kyle would tell you that we don't even know if we're going to be here on Thursday for the Thursday night game.
Correct, but I'm going to be over here in the camp of if something happens really bad in terms of health, that's I'm not saying it's no conversation. I'm saying it's a different conversation.
Sure.
I think what the scenarios you're throwing out is like,
It's multiple.
yeah, if everybody
It's
just
multiple.
plays poorly, and I'm like,
Brock is healthy and turns out he's a fraud.
Right.
And
Right.
Kyle suddenly does not have command of the locker room, which he has a great command of this locker room. They love Kyle. They love the young quarterback. They love each other. This team is absolutely locked in together. So it would take the quarterback being exposed is not very good, the head coach losing the locker room, and you missing the playoffs not once but twice. I would put the 3 of those things all happening at less than 5%.
oh gosh,
Probably closer to 2%.
less than one,
Right?
I think.
No, and I think
Yeah.
you're right. So even if Brock Purdy needed the services of Dr. Neil Elatrache, who he worked on Aaron Rodgers and he worked on Shohei Ohtani today, I want to go hang out in this guy's waiting room and just see who
Some
comes
famous
in.
people.
'Cause it's like the best athletes in the world.
Yep.
It's like you got an issue, you go see Dr. Neil.
Yeah.
And so even if Brock needed to go see the good doctor down in L.A. and it cost him a year, that still wouldn't cost Kyle his
Yeah,
job.
let's not. I don't even
No,
want to
I'm
put
just
that
saying,
out there,
Mark.
but yeah, I hear you.
I mean, if I
hear
say
you.
that and it happens, is it now my fault?
yes.
Okay, that's a bunch of crap.
I mean, you've been blaming
You
other
know
people
that.
for injuries for the last 2 years. Why can't I blame you?
Just Kyle,
Yeah.
because he's the one who's actually calling the plays that get guys hurt. I'm just a sports talk radio host on an ergonomic
Yeah.
stool drinking his water. I'm not calling, quarterback right on one.
No, you're not.
Quarterback blast.
No.
Get
you're-
in there, Trey,
you're
because I don't
just-
trust you to do anything else.
Nothing wrong with just wild statements into a microphone that are unfair. Why not? Why not?
Pays the bills. Put 2 kids through college.
Good.
Hot taking it.
Good. By the way, I forgot. There was one other team in the what was it I called? Like when you regret the payment. What did I just say? I said that the 2 teams that wanted to go back on their contract, Cleveland and
Yeah.
Denver.
Yeah.
There's one more, and that would be the team that's coming here Thursday night.
You think?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I don't. If they're not there yet, they're going to be soon.
It's only a 2-year deal, so
Right.
they have an out after 2 years.
Yes.
And that's like saying that Seattle's regretting Geno Smith.
No, it's not.
And
'cause-
Geno Smith has a 1-year out.
No, he's producing. Why would they regret that?
Well, I mean, they
Took him to
might.
the playoffs last year. And
Daniel Jones made the playoffs last year.
Right. But it wasn't because of Daniel Jones. Look at the numbers between the two.
Daniel Jones is a rushing machine. Daniel Jones is going to run all over you on
Yeah,
Thursday night.
I think, I tell you what.
Over under 40 yards for Danny Dimes on Thursday night.
What do you want? What do you want? Call this a bet if you want, but you can make it a one-way bet. No risk for you, okay? You tell me what you want from me if the Giants make the playoffs this year, because they won't.
I'm not saying the Giants are going to make the playoffs
So
this year.
then they're going to regret giving $40 million a year to Daniel Jones. You don't give $40 million a year to a quarterback and then feel good about it if you can't even make the playoffs.
Is it his fault that Saquon Barkley got hurt?
No. It's
So
not.
is it his fault that they
That is-
have minimal weapons in New York?
Saquon Barkley has played 7.5 quarters this year, and they've looked bad in almost all of them. So them missing the playoffs later this year, which is going to happen, has nothing to do, in my opinion, with Saquon Barkley.
What would you have had New York do instead of Daniel Jones? Knowing that you're picking like 22nd in the
Right.
NFL draft, and you've got really no other option outside of the building that would be a real tenable option. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was the free agent quarterback
Right.
in the offseason. Actually, he wasn't even a free agent. They had to trade for him.
trade for him.
The Jets did.
Yep.
Who was out there that New York could have gotten that would be better than Daniel Jones?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a good question.
Count that.
Jimmy Garoppolo was out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even sitting here saying that there was a perfect other option.
And I'm not saying
But
that I
there's-
love Daniel Jones,
Yeah,
but I'm
there's-
saying they were in a spot where they were kind of stuck. Daniel Jones played great last year,
that's
and
a
he
big
led you
word.
to the playoffs.
That's a big word.
He didn't pass it well, but he's a running threat.
Yeah, he played okay.
He led you to the playoffs
He played
in New
okay.
York.
Right. He played okay. They won every close game. They're very Vikings-esque.
And that's a strike against him for winning close games?
Not a strike against him, but it wasn't necessarily because of him. They had an unbelievable defense. Brian Daboll went in there and changed the culture of the whole thing. This is not me saying that Daniel Jones is a scrub. This is me saying he's not worth $40 million.
Well,
so
that's the going rate for a starting quarterback.
It's really not. They're like the majority of the NFL's not paying $40 million for their quarterback. The majority of the NFL is playing less than that.
And if you want to use the majority and you want to include Brock Purdy
That's a going
and
rate.
C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson
That's the
and
going
Kenny
rate.
Pickett
It's a going rate for a really good one.
and Desmond Ridder.
He's not that.
But if you want to look at quarterbacks who've gotten second contracts, $40 million is the going rate. That's
Right.
what Deshaun gets.
And look at the
Kirk
numbers.
gets-
Look at the numbers for the quarterbacks who get the second deal. They're all better than Daniel Jones. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Was there a great other option? Maybe not. But if I'm running a team and I've got that option's not great and that option's not great, I'd probably use the one that's going to cost me $15 million over 40. Honestly,
As opposed to a guy who won you a road playoff game and got you to the playoffs.
I mean, you can play funky facts all you want.
They're not funky facts.
They are.
It's reality.
It's-
We just talked earlier about winning games. Derek Carr.
Yes.
Is Derek Carr better than Daniel Jones?
Yes.
I don't think so.
And by the way,
they might be the same guy.
And by the way, but why do I have to hitch my wagon to Derek Carr in
You
this
don't.
conversation?
But my point was earlier about Derek Carr. Derek Carr is 2-0,
Yeah.
and Derek Carr's not very good, but he's 2-0, so he's not getting pulled. And if you're in New Orleans,
I'm not
you're
asking-
probably you're looking at Derek Carr and you're thinking, you're not the greatest QB, but damn, we're 2-0. We're pretty happy with that.
We're not talking about getting pulled. We're talking about signing up long term. And I think the Saints
Right.
and Giants are both going to get a big old nothing burger out of these contracts. And they're big contracts.
It's a 2-year
That's all
deal
I'm
for
saying.
Daniel Jones.
Well, then
It's
in
a 2-year out.
Then maybe they'll want to move on in 2 years. This guy, this whole he led him to the playoffs. He had 15 touchdown passes. Brock
In the
Purdy
air.
had that in 6 games.
How many rushing touchdowns for Daniel Jones? 6 or 7?
last year?
'Cause I think he rushed for
Yeah, he had
600 yards.
7.
Yeah. I mean,
he accounted for 22 scores in a full season?
Right.
That's junk.
for a playoff team
Yeah.
that won a playoff road game. I just don't think that should be discounted.
It's funny to me that we'll sit here and do that for Daniel Jones, but you never do that for Jimmy or Brock. We sat here
Always
for
for
6
Jimmy
years.
and Brock.
Never. You sat here last year and said Brock Purdy was the 6th most important player on the offense. What about?
And he still probably is.
Come on, man.
You want to put
man.
Brock Purdy in the New York system and you put Daniel Jones in this system? Who does better?
Brock.
Daniel Jones.
Are you kidding?
Daniel Jones with Kyle or Brock with Dable?
Give me Brock 100 million
give
times
me
in a row.
Dimes in Santa Clara.
Okay.
12 times and a 13th time on Sunday.
So Daniel Jones gets credit because they won and they went and won a playoff game. But after Brock did that twice,
Oh, he gets major
you still
credit.
sat here and said he's not even one of the most top 5 important players on the O.
I still don't think that.
Then why does Daniel get credit?
Because he's more important on their offense than Brock is on this offense.
I mean, based on
Daniel
what?
Jones doesn't have the same amount of talent that Brock has.
Statistically does nothing. He hands the ball to Saquon and the defense, and they try to beat you 17-14.
And he drops back, and he pulls it, and he runs, and he makes plays with the legs.
Yeah, not so much.
Danny Dimes
Not so
dancing
much.
out of the pocket.
He's not terrible. He's not Brock Purdy. Not even close. You would not trade Brock Purdy for Daniel Jones ever.
All I'm saying is Daniel Jones in this system would be better than Brock Purdy would be in that system.
Anyway,
because his team's better.
I don't want to die on this vine. I mean, we're off on a Daniel Jones tangent, but I definitely think that is one of the top 5 most overpaid quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Wow.
There's 4 or 5 guys. It's Russell Wilson, it's Deshaun Watson, it's Derek Carr, it's Daniel Jones, it's probably Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray for sure.
These are guys that their team that they're not going to win jack diddly squat with those quarterbacks right now.
Yeah,
they're just not. They're not. I mean, the Giants. We can be all excited that they came back against the Arizona Cardinals. They're the only team in their division that's not 2-0. They ain't going to the playoffs.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm not. Even though it's a one-way bet, I'm not going to take that bet.
Oh, you can if you want.
It's whatever. It's a big nothing.
Yeah,
it's a big nothing.
You can make me do a show on my back. You can make me make me wear something funny if you want. You can write something on my forehead in the middle of the show. I don't care. They ain't going. He's okay. I'm not going $40 million for okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you get into a spot where he's probably better than what you could have come up with either in the draft or on the open market. And so he's your guy, and he goes 9-6-1, and he wins a playoff game, so he gets paid. That's the way the system works.
Cut Dibs' toenails? Come on, Chris. That's gross. I'm not cutting your toenails.
I had to rub Low Neal's feet. That was a whole...
I know.
That bet, I can get into that if you want on the other side. That bet came down to the last week of the NFL season.
I'd rather not.
Telling.
I'd rather not ask Peter King about you rubbing Low Neal's feet.
Peter King would be fascinated by the backstory that led to that. And it came down to the last week of the year. It was a bad beat. Frickin' Kirk Cousins.